Your Honor, defense calls Whit Bowman to the stand.
Mr. Bowman, please take the stand, and I again remind you that you are under oath.
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
You may.
Please state your name for the court, spelling the last for the record.
Whit Bowman, B-O-W-M-A-N.
Mr. Bowman, why are you in court today?
I'm being charged with armed robbery, even though I didn't rob anyone, and I certainly wasn't armed. I'm being blamed for what Cameron Poole did.
Especially a name we've heard a lot about this day. How do you know Cameron Poole?
I met Cameron in high school, in chemistry class. The teacher, Mr. White, had a vendetta against us both, and that sort of brought us closer together. After high school, when I realized that college just wasn't for me, we took a tour of the country together, but after a little bit of that, we split up.
When was the next time you saw Mr. Poole?
I was working at Rocker World, and he showed up out of the blue.
What was Cameron Poole's job at Rocker World?
Cameron Poole replaced me at the ticket booth.
When he replaced you, what job did you work?
Well, by that year, I already had a year's seniority at Rocker World, so I got to choose where I worked. And I chose to work as a ride operator.
What rides did you operate in the summer of 2012?
Mostly Hammock's Hamster Wheel, and the Mine Racer, and also the Tunnel of Terror.
I want to ask you about the ticketing system at Rocker World. Are you familiar with it?
Yeah, I am.
How does it work?
There are two kinds of wristbands at Rocker World. There's the regular and World Tour. And if customers had the World Tour wristbands, us ride operators were supposed to let them into the faster lines.
Were you here in court for Detective Kimball's testimony today?
Yeah, I was.
Did you hear Detective Kimball say that there was a ticketing scheme going on at Rocker World?
I did.
Did Mr. Poole ever talk to you about this ticketing scheme?
Mr. Poole did explain this to me. When he worked at the ticketing booth, he came up with the scheme, and he showed me how it works and stuff. And he just explained it to me.
Mr. Bowman, were you in any way involved in setting up this ticketing scheme?
No, I did not help Cameron Poole with this scheme. I knew about it, and I didn't report it to anyone. I just didn't want to hurt my friend.
I want to talk to you about the events of August 3rd, 2012. Were you working at Rocker World that day?
I was.
How did that morning begin for you?
Well, Cameron and I entered the park together, but Mr. Longstreet was waiting at the ticket booth for Cameron that day. This wasn't my beef, so I just left and went to my ride.
Do you know what happened between Mr. Poole and Mr. Longstreet?
Yeah. Cameron sent me a text later in the day, and he told me that he needed to get something in the park. So I met with him and let him in. And he explained to me that Mr. Longstreet had told him to leave for the day.
Do you know why Mr. Poole wanted to get back into the park after Longstreet had ordered him to leave?
He told me that he needed to get the box with his fake wristbands in it. And that's when my heart stopped.
Why were you scared?
Because earlier, Cameron had shown me those wristbands. And I looked at them. And I touched them. My fingerprints must have been on them. And I was afraid that something like this would happen if Cameron got in trouble.
So when was the next time you saw Mr. Poole on August 30th?
It was later in the night. I was working at the Tunnel of Terror that time. I heard a commotion on the other side of the park, and then saw Cameron running, being chased by a security guard.
What happened when Cameron Poole was running into the park?
He was running right at me. And then there was a gunshot.
What happened as you heard this gunshot?
It was just like in the movies. Everybody hit the ground. And including me. But then I realized that the ride was still moving, and everybody in the ride was still in danger. I had to stop it.
How did you try to stop this ride from keeping going?
Well, I was still on the ground, and I had to reach up into the control panel and try to find the stop button. But first, I hit something and then the lights went out, and I could still hear the ride moving.
Were you able to stop the ride?
Yeah, after a few seconds, I found the stop button, and then the lights came back on.
Was there still a lot of commotion at this point?
No, it was dead silent. That felt even worse.
Did you see Mr. Poole anywhere?
No, I don't know where Cameron went, and I haven't seen him since.
Mr. Bowman, did you know that this robbery was going to occur before it did?
No, I had no idea.
Did you know that Mr. Poole would rob the ticket booth at knife point?
No, I didn't know Cameron would do anything like that.
And were you here say in court for the testimony of Rory Shelton?
I was.
Did you hear Miss Shelton say that she saw you give a knife to Mr. Poole?
Yeah, I don't know why she said that, because I never gave Cameron a knife.
No further questions.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
Proceed.
Mr. Bowman, you started working at Rock the World in April of 2011, correct?
Yeah,
And then your friend Cameron Poole began working there the summer of 2012.
yeah,
That summer, you were scheduled to work the rides, correct?
well, I chose to work the rides.
And Mr. Poole was to work the ticket booth.
Yeah, he wanted to work there.
He began to ask you questions about the wristband system.
He was new to the park and understandably had some questions.
And you saw him find a website that sold copies or similar versions of the wristbands.
Yeah,
And that's when he told you about his ticket scheme.
yeah,
And you thought it was no big deal,
yeah.
because you could use the spare cash.
Everybody at the park needed some money.
And then, on August 30th, you were scheduled to work the mind eraser, correct?
Yeah,
But then, you said that you received a text message from Cameron Poole.
yeah,
Would you recognize this text message if I showed it to you?
I would.
Permission to approach the bench and retrieve evidence.
Yes.
Permission to approach the witness with it. Now, Mr. Bowman, is that a screenshot of your cell phone from that day?
It is.
And are those text messages that you sent?
Well, some of them I sent.
And is Cameron Poole?
Yeah,
Now, the text message you received from Cameron Poole was at 12:45, correct?
no, I received lots of texts. Which one?
The first one, where he said he needed to get into the park.
No, the first one was at 10:36 a.m.
So, but then you responded later saying that you would let him in through the Tunnel of Terror right at 12:45.
Yeah, that's when I wanted to meet him.
And so you went and you let him in through the park through the emergency entrance.
Right, and that's when he explained that he needed to get the box.
Permission to approach witness and retrieve evidence and reconvert the bench. You weren't meant to work the Tunnel of Terror right that day, were you?
No.
Yet you insisted on Miss Isaacs to allow you to switch over for that ride, didn't you?
Employees switch rides all the time, yeah, that wasn't out of the usual.
But that day, you were even sending water to Miss Isaacs to get her to leave her ride, weren't you?
No, that was when I wanted to meet Cameron.
So you really wanted to work the Tunnel of Terror ride, didn't you, that day?
It's my favorite ride.
So then finally, you got Miss Isaacs to leave so you could work the ride?
Yeah,
And you were working the ride at the time that you saw Cameron Bull and Officer Thomas run through it, didn't you?
yeah, that was later that night.
But you'd worked the Tunnel of Terror ride previous times before, didn't you?
Yeah, I usually took it from Miss Isaacs.
So you were very familiar with the control panel on that ride, weren't you?
Yeah, I've seen it before.
So it was at the time that you saw Cameron Poole and Officer Thomas running through the tunnel that you hit the disconnect button?
No, first there was a gunshot, and then I reached up from the control panel when I couldn't see it, and that's when I hit the disconnect button.
You're familiar that the disconnect button on the Tunnel of Terror ride is a lever, correct?
Yeah?
And a lever you have to pull,
No, you push it.
but you still have to manually pull it down, don't you?
No, you push it.
And then there's the stop button,
Yeah.
which is on a different side of the control board,
Yeah, they're like 6 inches away, like this close to each other.
but yet you still managed to pull the disconnect lever instead of pushing the stop button.
No, I must have pushed the disconnect lever when I was reaching for the stop button. I couldn't see the control panel.
But you were familiar with the controls for that ride, weren't you?
Yeah, I've seen them before.
And so you knew on which side, which the disconnect lever was on and what side the stop button was on, correct?
I couldn't see the control panel.
Now, when Officer Kimball interviewed you that day, you told him that that cell phone wasn't yours, correct?
I did tell him that.
It wasn't until later on in the evening that you actually claimed authority to that cell phone, correct?
Yeah, didn't know Cameron had committed a robbery, and when I learned that, it was different.
No further questions.
Can you redirect?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Mr. Bowman, did you intentionally hit the disconnect lever on the Tunnel of Terror?
No, I was reaching for the stop button, the red stop button, but I couldn't see the control panel. And it was when I was reaching for that button that I hit the lever.
No further questions.
Can you recross?
I have no recross on those terms, Your Honor.
Good. Mr. Bowman, you may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Defense may call its next witness.
The defense calls Ms. Jackie Hunter to the stand. Mr. Hunter.
Mr. Hunter, you may please step forward, and I again remind you, as I've been reminding all the witnesses, that you are under oath.
Yes, Your Honor.
Counsel, you may begin.
Please state your name for the court, spelling the last for the record.
Jackie Hunter. More go by Jack, Hunter spelled Hunter.
Where do you work, Mr. Hunter?
I'm currently an intern at the Midlands Voice. It's a circulation in Midlands.
And what do you do at the Midlands Voice?
My current investigation is Rock World primarily.
What got you started in your investigation into Rockerworld?
Well, it all started back in 2009. I got hired there right out of college.
What in 2009 made you want to begin an investigation into Rockerworld?
I started as a janitor, you know. if I had to write a little expose, it'd be janitor at Rock to World, professional puke cleaner upper. But I started when I saw a ride that was getting shut down. Guy at clipboards yelling at the boss, J.C. Longstreet. I was gonna write an article, you know, Rock to World, this ride could be your last. It's when the snowball kind of started rolling that, you know, something might be down at Rock.
Now, in 2010, did you return to Rock World?
I did, you know, not very many people come back, so I was able to get a floating ride operator gig.
What is a floating ride operator?
Well, you're not really permanent at a current ride, but you kind of cover it, but, you know, at the ride, you're kind of a glorified traffic cop.
What do you mean that you're a glorified traffic cop?
Well, there's you know, the wristbands, there's like the normal one and the more expensive one. You got to sort which one's in the right line. That's pretty much all you do.
This wristband system that you are referring to, can you explain to us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, the Rock to World, there's two types of admission. The general admission just gets you in the park, and then there's a more expensive World Tour one, gets you a couple extra perks and into these shorter lines, like I said.
In 2010, did you find any evidence to add to your investigation to Rock World?
I get my assignments from the main office, and I go in there, and there's like it's always a huge mess in there, but, you know, the peculiar thing was that there were wristbands everywhere. You think those would be in boxes to be brought to the ticket booth, but they're scattered everywhere. Every kind of wristband is just there.
Would you recognize those wristbands if I showed them to you in court today?
Yeah, I would.
Now approaching the opposing counsel with offenses Exhibit A.
Which copy are you taking?
The colored one. Approaching the witness with the same. Mr. Hunter, what is it that I have handed you?
These are the wristbands at Rock to World.
Is this a fair and accurate copy of the ones you were referring to from 2010?
Yeah, this is what I saw.
Defense now moves Exhibit A into evidence.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor, Select Foundation.
Could you develop that?
Yes, Your Honor, these are the wristbands that have been taken from the 2012 wristbands at Rock the World. No foundation has been laid that these are the exact same wristbands he saw in the office in 2010. He said he saw all types of wristbands in the office, but that was 2 years prior to the collection of these wristbands. No foundation has been laid that they're the exact same type of wristbands.
Response?
Your Honor, this witness has just testified that these are the same wristbands that he saw in the office in 2010.
The objections are ruled. The evidence is received. I should say Exhibit A is received.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, in 2010, was Mr. Bowman working at Rocker World?
No, he worked in 2011 and 2012.
Permission to approach the witness to retrieve evidence intended to the ground. Now, did you find anything else in 2010 that added to your investigation?
No, like I said, the snowball was kind of rolling. I had a base. You know, I was building like my masterpiece was Snowman, and I had the base. I came back in 2011 to add the next section.
What evidence did you find in 2011?
2011, it kind of shifted over to the bosses. You know, J.C. Longstreet owns the place, and Haley Floyd, the accountant. Always mad all the time, yelling at each other, and then no one could go in the
Objection,
office.
Your Honor, it's to speculation.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Okay.
Your Honor, this witness is basing this opinion on his rationally based perception, which he may do as a lay witness.
Response?
His testimony was that they were always mad. That goes to speculate as to the mindset of J.C. Longstreet and Haley Floyd. That's pure speculation.
Objection is sustained.
Move to a strike pending testimony.
Granted.
In 2011, what did you find that added to your investigation?
Well, no one could go in the office, but as a floating ride operator, that's where I got my assignments. That was, you know, that just tipped me off.
Why couldn't you go into that office?
Anytime you looked at that office the wrong way, Haley Floyd would just scream at you. He's normally not much of a yeller.
Now, do you know why Mr. Floyd was yelling so much that summer?
Yeah, 2011, these big dudes, beefy dudes, black suits, kind of, you know, they'd come to the park and, you know, talk to Longstreet. They're kind of steal your lunch money kind of dudes. That's where I was going to write my next piece, you know, stealing your lunch money, adult edition.
Objection, Your Honor, as to more prejudicial than probative.
Response?
Your Honor, that must be most substantially more prejudicial than probative. This has significant probative effect as it goes to Mr. Longstreet's credibility, the owner at Rock World, and goes directly to the defendant's case in chief.
Well, Mr. Longstreet isn't here to testify, so his credibility really isn't an issue here. Do you have any other rationale as to why this is substantially more probative than prejudicial?
Yes, Your Honor, the defense offers that there is a separate job that occurred at Rock World involving the wristband ticketing scheme and the robbery that does not involve Mr. Bowman. This testimony elicits that it could possibly be Mr. Longstreet with a specific motive to want to extract money from Rock World.
Response?
The witness is testifying about these intimidating, burly-looking men that have no probative value. He's not given a context as to why they're at the park. He has no evidence as to their actual interactions with J.C. Longstreet, the conversations they had. They could very well be ride mechanics as they could be people who are trying to extract money from J.C. Longstreet. This is purely speculation as to the reason why Haley Floyd is angry and thus has no probative value in today's case.
I will allow a little bit of leeway into this, but just be warned, counsel, if this doesn't go any further, or if it's not clear and if it's just leading down the road to more speculation, I'm going to have to sustain the objection.
Yes, Your Honor. Did you come back to Rock World in 2012?
I did, yes. You know, I had the next section of the snowman I was going to put on the head and finish my masterpiece. Finally cracked the case of Rock.
Were you able to finally finish your story, Mr. Hunter?
No, right as I was getting right into the head, the heat of it, right at the dead center, the heart of it, I was fired.
When exactly were you fired?
I was fired in early April, right at the beginning of the season.
And where were you when you were fired?
Well, I was at the office. I saw Haley Floyd and J.C. Longstreet on the other end of the park. They're yelling at each other, and so I go into the office to seize the opportunity.
What did you find when you were inside that main park office?
Like I said, the place was always a mess. I'm seeing wristbands everywhere, all kinds, all colors. I see plumbing invoices, expensive ones. I worked there 4 years, and never seen them. And then I get to Haley Floyd's desk and I see 2 books.
What was inside, or what books did you find?
Well, I see these books. They look awfully similar, same bindings, everything. And I look at the spine and there's a date on both, same date. One's got a couple extra letters. So I open these books up and I'm looking through them and I'm seeing spreadsheets, numbers, but they're not lining up.
And when did Mr. Floyd come in?
Right as I'm looking through the books, he comes in, he just explodes at me. Makes a call, security's, thrown me out of the park. That was my last day.
Now, Mr. Hunter, before today, did you try to tell anybody about all these things that you found at Rock World?
Yeah, everyone knows I'm trying to break this. Everyone with the voice knows that Rock World's, that's my story. On the day of the robbery, I call Officer Kimball. I tell him, look, it's deeper than this. You've got to look at management.
And how did Officer Kimball respond when you encouraged him to look into the park's management?
He hung up on me.
No further questions.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, Mr. Hunter, you were a floating ride operator in 2011, or from 2010 to 2012, correct?
Yeah, I was promoted after being a gent.
And you worked quite a few of the rides, didn't you?
Yeah, I got around, you never really had an assigned ride.
You worked the Minder Racer,
Oh yeah, a few times, yeah.
which you said was one of the trickiest rides at Rock the World.
Objection, Your Honor, relevance?
Counsel?
This is going to show that this evidence is going to show the complicatedness of both mind eraser compared to the tunnel of terror, which is paramount in the prosecution's case, showing that Whit Bowman couldn't have been confused about the simple controls of the tunnel of terror.
May I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
Your Honor, this specific witness's experiences as a ride operator are not at trial today. This makes nothing in this case more or less likely to be true.
I agree. The objection is sustained.
Motion to strike any written testimony.
Now, Mr. Hunter, you worked the tunnel of terror, didn't you?
Yeah, I was floating around operator, I got around to all of it.
And it only had 3 buttons on the control panel, correct?
Objection,
Two buttons,
Your Honor,
one
wait. What has 3 buttons?
Could you
Yes,
elaborate
sir.
more?
And you worked the control panel of the Tower of Terror, didn't you?
The tunnel of terror, the tower of terror is a Disneyland.
I apologize. You worked the control panel of the Tunnel of Terror, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
And it had 2 buttons and 1 lever on it, didn't it?
Yeah, I did.
And they were about 6 inches apart, weren't
Yeah,
they?
it's not that big of a control panel since there's only 3 things on it.
But the blue lever was on the other side of the control panel from the start and stop button for the ride, wasn't it?
I mean, yeah, I mean 6 inches like this. Right there, yeah.
I'd like to talk to you about this evidence that you were accruing for your story. Now, you work for The Voice, don't you?
I do, yeah, I've been an intern there for about a year now.
And The Voice has a history of being a muckraking newspaper, doesn't it?
Some of our competitors may say that.
And you've actually presented stories to The Voice before, didn't you?
I have, yes, about Rockdale, but I'm not done yet.
And when you presented these stories, the editor said these weren't controversial enough for you, so he sent you to find more stories.
Yeah, I've been trying to finish it, you know, like you're looking at 2 parts of the snowman, not even the head. Like, what are you looking at?
And back to my question, he said that your stories didn't have enough controversy, and so he didn't take them, did he?
He didn't.
So you went back to Rock the World to find more controversy for your story.
Finish my masterpiece.
And so you snuck into Haley Floyd's office when Haley Floyd and Longstreet were having a conversation.
Yeah, yelling at each other in the opposite park, so I seized the opportunity.
And you didn't know what they were yelling about. You didn't have context of that conversation, did you?
No, they're on the other side of the park, that's why I went on the other side.
So you snuck into Haley Floyd's office.
Oh, yeah.
And you saw these 2 books.
Yeah, and tons of other stuff.
And you thought these books were peculiar because they had different numbers, didn't you?
Yeah, but the same date on the spine.
Now, you said that you don't have you're not very good at math, are you?
Yeah.
You don't have any previous education in accounting, do you?
Check Your Honor, relevance to this witness's education.
I overruled this in this testimony relating to his experience with accounting is relevant to this question.
So, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, no experience in accounting.
So you don't know what a trial balance looks like?
I don't know what you're even talking about.
So you don't know if these 2 books could be accounting principles and standards?
No, they're just books on the table.
But
They
you
look
thought,
the same.
but you thought they looked peculiar simply because there were just 2 books in Haley Floyd's office.
I'm telling you, they're like leather books. They look the same. Why would you have the same books right there?
But you don't know anything about accounting.
No.
And you saw these plumbing invoices, correct?
Yeah, I did.
And you don't know anything about plumbing, do you?
No, I leave it to my plumber.
So you found evidence for a controversy on things that you have no experience in.
And you don't need experience to be like, hey, I worked here 4 years and never seen a plumber. Why the plumbing invoices?
But you thought this was evidence for your controversy, even though you have no experience in either of these documents.
That's exactly what it is. Controversy. 2 books, look exactly the same date. One's a little different. The numbers, the contents are the same. They look the same, but they're different. That's the controversy I was looking for my story.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
Based on that, Your Honor, there is no redirect. I ask this witness to excuse.
Any excuse, sir? Any further witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Charlie Kaminsky to the stand.
Ms. Kaminsky, please step forward, and again, I remind you that you are on the road.
Yes, Your Honor.
Please state your name for the court, spelling your last for the record.
Charlie Kaminsky, Kaminsky.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a businesswoman. I run my own transportation company called Contributor A Luxury Transportation.
Ms. Kaminsky, how did you start this business?
I used to drive cars for a company called AAA Luxury Transportation, but the middle-end market for taxi cabs in Milan has been saturated and even shrinking. A hard landing for market is just a matter of time. So I just quit this job and start my own company in the market of Thailand.
Ms. Kaminsky, are you familiar with Rocketworld?
Oh yes. I used to drive some clients to Rocketworld, and also I'm a regular customer there.
I would like to talk to you about August 30th. Where were you that morning?
I was at Rocketworld.
Why were you there?
Contributor A Luxury Transportation saw a spike in revenue in August, so I decided to give every employee and myself a break at the end of August, and I decided to spend my day in Rocketworld.
Did you stay there the entire day?
Almost the entire day. I left an hour before the closing time.
Why did you leave early?
Around 8 p.m., I received a message from a client requesting to be picked up around a grocery store. I was ready to leave anyway, so I went into my limo.
And did you get to your pickup point in time?
Yeah, of course. I got there at 8:15.
Did you meet your client?
Oh yeah. A man came into my car, knocked at my window, and then jumped into my back seat. I didn't know he was my client.
Did you recognize your client?
Yes, it was Cameron Poole, the ticket seller at Rocketworld. I used to buy some World Tour tickets or regular admission tickets from him.
Was that the first time you saw Mr. Poole on August 30th?
Actually not. A few minutes ago, when I was leaving the park, I actually saw him chasing after a bad guy, and Cameron Poole was running through the park.
And what time did you see that?
It was when I was leaving, so a little after 8 p.m.
Moving on to the ride, when Mr. Poole hopped into the back seat of your car, what did he do?
Well, he paid me a huge amount of money and asked to go to the Milan's marina. Oh, he also told me to put up the privacy screen so that he could make some phone calls.
So what was your response to that?
I received the money and I put up the privacy screen, and we are ready for the Milan's marina. Oh, and also let the car speaker on so that we could communicate with each other.
What time did you leave?
We left once he came into my car, so around 8:15.
Now, did Cameron Poole make the calls as he talked about?
Yes.
What time did he start making those calls?
He started making these phone calls once we are leaving, so it's 8:16.
At this point, I would like to talk to you more about the calls that you heard. Could you describe to the court, the first call that Mr. Poole made?
Yeah, of course. For the first phone call, he had his phone on speaker, so I could not only hear what Cameron Poole is saying, also the person at the end of the other line is saying.
What did Cameron Poole say?
He said something about a knife, and then he told this person that nobody will know you have anything to do with it.
You recognize the voice from the other end of the line?
Yeah, it is Wade Bowman, a Rocketworld employee.
How do you know it is Mr. Bowman?
You know, Wade was operating one of my favorite rides at Rocketworld. We used to chat a lot, so I knew his voice.
From the voice you heard, what was Mr. Bowman's reaction to Cameron Poole's words?
There was this silence, and then he exploded. He started shouting and even crying a little bit. His voice was very flustered.
What exactly was he shouting about?
He screamed that he didn't have anything to do with it.
Was that the only call you heard from Mr. Poole?
No, he made another phone call, a second phone call.
Did Mr. Poole leave the speakerphone on as he did for the first one?
No, for this phone call, he turned off the speakerphone, so I could only hear what Cameron Poole was saying.
What did you hear?
He told the person,
Objection, hearsay.
May I be heard?
Yeah, ma'am.
May I make an offer of proof about the statement that this witness is about to solicit?
Well, I'd like to know why it's not hearsay.
Yes, Your Honor. This statement will expose Mr. Cameron Poole to criminal liability. This falls under hearsay exclusion rule 804B3A, and thus this is admissible under today's trial.
Response?
This next conversation is one that the court should not hear. As it is hearsay, it will go on to discuss things about someone we don't know on the other end of the line. We don't know who this person is. And further, it won't open anyone up to criminal liability.
May I make an offer of proof, Your Honor?
I'm going to overrule the objection.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
You may.
What did you hear Mr. Poole say for this phone call?
He said he had smoothed things over with wheat, which I found very ridiculous. I don't think wheat sounds like smooth over to me.
And what else did you hear?
He also told this person at the end of other line that he would stay out of sight until he meet this person at a bar.
Oh,
Objection, renew my objection to hearsay.
may I be heard?
You may.
Mr. Poole, as been testified by this witness, has just robbed the park. And he's making a call about smoothing things with wit and staying out of sight and meeting with his co-conspirators. This is very incriminating. This exposed Mr. Poole, the declarant, to criminal liability. This falls under the exclusion of hearsay 804.
Counsel?
This last statement, the one about the bar, is one that we can't understand what it meant, and we might have been a bar another time. The thing is, we're taking this as proof of the matter asserted, and the defense is alleging that this is the same issue, that this is all connected together. But we don't know that for certain, and to say that and to offer this in evidence, there's no objection response that will allow this.
May I be heard?
First, do you have any authority which would support the conclusion that this different statement made in the same context would somehow not be, I guess, a statement against interest?
Well, the statement is Cameron would stay out of sight until they were supposed to meet up at the bar. But we don't know if that was something, it might not have been connected to the robbery at all. We really don't know, and he's not technically opening himself up to criminal liability at this point. Just saying that he'll meet someone at a bar at some time in the future. We don't know any more than that.
Counsel?
May I be heard? We've established that it is less than 10 minutes after Cameron Poole being chased by the security officer, running through the park, and now he's taking a cab. He's saying he will stay out of sight until he meets someone at the bar. Now this directly exposes Mr. Poole to criminal liability, that he just robbed the park and now he needs to stay out of sight. This is very incriminating.
And the statement was, stay out of sight, or to that effect. At that point, on that basis, I'm going to sustain the objection for that statement.
Move to strike that statement?
Yes, granted.
Ms. Kaminsky, at that point, were you able to hear anything else?
Actually, yes, I was able to hear more, but I just switched off the car speaker because I don't want to hear more about Cameron Poole's illicit activities than those I already knew.
What do you mean the activities you already knew?
Early this summer, Cameron Poole told me he was stealing money from Rock the World.
What exactly did you see Mr. Poole do?
There was one time when I was buying World Tour bracelet from Cameron Poole, but he didn't put my money into the cash register, but somewhere else. And then he gave me this bracelet from under the table, not on the table, where I always got my bracelet from. And I took the bracelet, it's faded in color and it didn't have any number on it.
At this point, permission to approach the bench to retrieve defense aid.
You may.
I'm handing the witness, defense A. Ms. Kaminsky, what did I just give you?
There are 3 different kinds of World Tour business. The first is general admission ticket. The second is World Tour pass. And the second one is $15 more expensive, but it can get you into faster land. And I really bet this one because